The sound of gunfire shattered the calm evening air. It was supposed to be an ordinary walk home, a quiet street, a tired man, and a little boy holding his father's calloused hand. But fate had other plans that night. The black SUV came screeching to a halt, men in masks pouring out like shadows, their eyes filled with greed and rage. Before anyone could make sense of what was happening, a small cry pierced through the chaos, the cry of a terrified child. And in that split second, one man made a choice that would change his life forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of doing good even when the world looks away, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps these stories of hope and humanity alive. That man's name was Daniel Cole, a single father, a construction worker, and a man who had known more loss than anyone should in a lifetime. After his wife passed away 3 years earlier, Daniel had been raising his 8-year-old son, Oliver, alone. Every morning, he packed 2 lunchboxes, one for his boy and one for himself, and together, they'd share a small breakfast before heading out to face their day. Life wasn't easy. Rent was overdue, his boots were worn out, and his hands were cracked from long hours of lifting steel and concrete. Yet, every night, when Oliver fell asleep beside him on their old couch, Daniel felt a peace that no money could buy. His son was his reason, his heartbeat, his world. That evening, they were walking home from a nearby park. It was almost dark, the streetlights flickering to life one by one. Daniel had just bought Oliver an ice cream, a small treat after a tough week. Across the street, a sleek black limousine had pulled up in front of a private school. From it stepped a man in an expensive suit and a little girl in a school uniform, clutching her backpack. She couldn't have been older than Oliver. They looked like they belonged to another world, polished, untouchable. Daniel barely noticed them until the chaos began. A van came speeding down the street, tires screeching, headlights flashing wildly. Men in dark clothes jumped out, shouting, pointing guns. They ran straight for the girl and her father. Everything happened in seconds. The man tried to shield his daughter, but one of the attackers shoved him aside, grabbing the little girl's arm. She screamed, a sound so sharp it cut through Daniel's chest like a blade. Instinct took over. Daniel dropped Oliver's hand and ran. He didn't think about the danger, the guns, or even the fact that these weren't his people. All he saw was a child in terror and a father powerless to save her. The gun went off before Daniel could even reach them. He lunged forward, wrapping his arms around the girl, and turned his back toward the shooter. The bullet tore through him, hot and merciless, and he hit the ground hard. For a moment, everything went silent. His ears rang, his breath caught, and the taste of blood filled his mouth. But the little girl was safe in his arms. He whispered through the pain, "You're safe, kid." Before everything faded to black. When Daniel woke up, he was in a hospital bed, the sterile smell burning his nose. His shoulder was bandaged tightly, and the pain came in waves. A nurse told him he had lost a lot of blood but would survive. He looked around, confused. Where was Oliver? Panic rose in his chest until he saw a small figure curled up in a chair beside him. His son was fast asleep, clutching his father's jacket. Relief washed over Daniel. He didn't care about the pain, the hospital bills, or the chaos that had led him here. His boy was safe. That was all that mattered. What Daniel didn't know was that the man he had saved the girl from losing was one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, Edward Langford, a name that carried weight in every boardroom and headline. Langford's daughter, Emily, was his only child, his world, just as Oliver was Daniel's. The kidnapping attempt had been planned by rivals, a brutal move in a world of corporate wars. But none of that mattered now. Because when Langford learned that a stranger, a poor construction worker, had thrown himself in front of a bullet for his daughter, he was shaken to his core. The next morning, Daniel was discharged early because he couldn't afford another night in the hospital. His arm was in a sling, and every movement sent pain shooting through his shoulder. He carried Oliver home, their small rented house at the edge of town, looking even lonelier than usual. The fridge was almost empty, the power bill overdue. He sighed, trying to hide his exhaustion from his son. All he wanted was a quiet day, a cup of coffee, and maybe a moment to figure out how to pay for the hospital expenses that were sure to arrive soon. But peace wasn't what awaited him that day. Just as Daniel stepped onto his porch, the low rumble of engines filled the air. 6 black SUVs pulled up one after another, blocking the narrow street. Doors opened, and men in suits stepped out, forming a silent line. Daniel froze, clutching Oliver protectively. He thought maybe the attackers had come back, or worse, that the police suspected him of something. But then the back door of the lead SUV opened, and a tall man stepped out. It was Edward Langford. Neighbors peeked through curtains as the billionaire walked up Daniel's cracked driveway, his expensive shoes crunching on the gravel. Behind him followed his little daughter, the same girl Daniel had shielded. She held a teddy bear, her small face solemn and pale. The sight was surreal, two worlds colliding, a man of wealth standing in front of a man who had nothing but a good heart and an injured arm. Edward approached slowly, eyes filled with gratitude and guilt. He looked around at the crumbling house, the rusty mailbox, the broken fence. This was the home of the man who had saved his child, and it hit him harder than he expected. He said quietly that he wanted to thank Daniel properly, that he owed him more than words could express. Daniel, embarrassed, tried to shrug it off. He said he didn't do it for thanks or reward, that any father would have done the same. But Edward knew that wasn't true. He had seen how people turned away when danger appeared. Daniel was different. He had risked everything. In the days that followed, Edward sent people to repair Daniel's roof, to restock his fridge, to pay his bills. He even arranged a better job for him, one that didn't require breaking his body every day for pennies. But Daniel was proud. At first, he refused. He didn't want charity, he didn't want his son to grow up thinking that good deeds were done for rewards. Yet, deep down, he knew he couldn't keep struggling forever. His son deserved better. As weeks passed, something unexpected bloomed between the two families. Edward began visiting more often, bringing his daughter along. Emily and Oliver became fast friends, laughing and playing in the small backyard that now had new grass and a repaired fence. Edward, who had lost touch with real people in his high-rise world, found a strange peace in that humble home. He'd sit with Daniel on the porch, two fathers sharing stories about fear, love, and what it meant to protect your child. Edward learned that Daniel's wife had died in a car crash on her way to pick up Oliver from daycare. The pain still haunted him, but he hid it behind quiet strength. One rainy evening, when Edward saw Daniel struggling with his sling while cooking dinner, something inside him shifted. He realized he didn't just owe Daniel gratitude, he owed him a chance. So, he offered him a permanent position in his company's safety division, supervising workers and ensuring welfare. It paid well, had benefits, and would change Daniel's life. This time, Daniel accepted. For the first time in years, he could breathe without fear of losing everything. He could buy Oliver new shoes, fix the heater, and even save a little. But beyond the material things, something far more beautiful had grown, a bond between two families that once stood on opposite ends of the world. Months later, Edward hosted a charity gala. Daniel was invited, though he felt out of place among the glittering guests. But when Edward took the stage and told the story of the man who took a bullet for his child, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. He introduced Daniel to everyone, calling him not a hero, but a reminder that courage and kindness still exist, even in the darkest corners of the world. The crowd stood and applauded, but Daniel's eyes were only on his son, smiling proudly from the front row. That was his true reward.